and welcome to another Hayley-Roxanna crafts video. I have recently released the cross-stitch charts and instructions to make this advent calendar cushion. And whilst I was stitching it, I'd realised that I'd actually used quite a lot of French knots in the design. And I'm aware that a lot of cross-stitchers don't like doing French knots. So I thought I'd make a video to show a couple of alternatives that could be used in place of these French knots. But first, I will do a recap on how I represent French knots on my charts and how to actually do them. So this is how I show French knots on my charts. It sort of almost looks like a little knot. And then to find out what colour thread you need to use for this, you need to find that colour on the key. So it tells you here that there's got 2 knots to be done in that colour, which is the DMC 648. And you also know from this that you are using 2 strands for these knots. So now I'll show you how I do my French knots. French knots can literally be done anywhere on the cross stitch, so sometimes you might actually come up through a hole to do them, whereas other times they could be located anywhere on the fabric and you might need to pierce the fabric to actually do them. If you are having to pierce the fabric to do your French knot, you may wish to use a sharper needle than just a normal tapestry needle, just to help with piercing the fabric. Another thing to be aware of with French knots is that a couple of things can affect the size of the French knot. So firstly, the number of strands that you are using, and secondly, the number of times the thread is wrapped around the needle. For my advent calendar cushion design, I've actually specified in the instructions exactly how many strands of thread I've used and how many times I've wrapped the thread around the needle for each knot, just to help anybody who's not sure. But the best way to sort of work out what size knots you might want to use if you're not given the information in the instructions is to just experiment on a piece of scrap fabric to see what happens with different numbers of thread and different numbers of times of wrapping the thread around the needle. So to show you how I'm doing French knots, I've got 2 strands of my DMC cotton, stranded cotton, threaded up into a needle, and I'm just going to come up somewhere on the fabric like so. So I'm coming up through an actual hole, but like I said, you may need to pierce the fabric because you might find that the French knot's needed maybe just in the centre of a square, and then you'd come up there instead. Okay, so if I come up like that, and then all you've got to do is wrap the thread around the needle. So I'm going to wrap it twice. So that's 1, 2, and then you've got to push your needle back down into the fabric. You don't want to go down in the hole you've just come up. You want to go down just, I usually go just above, you could go just to the side. It doesn't really matter, it's what makes you feel comfortable with doing it. And then you just want to hold the thread taut. I just rest my thumb on it. So as I pull through, it keeps it tight. And then just gently pull down to form your French knot, like so. So the first alternative to French knots that I'm going to show you is a colonial knot. Again, I'm using 2 strands of thread in my needle. And again, colonial knot, same as the French knot, could be anywhere. You might need to pierce the fabric to get your knot where you want it. So I'll do this one piercing the fabric. So I'm just coming up where I want the knot, like so, gently pull my thread through. And then you want to make like a backward C with your thread, like so. And then just pop your needle down on your thread and just angle it through under the top part of the C, like so. And then you're going to take the excess thread from the end and just take it over your needle to form like a figure of 8, like so. And then you want to just gently pull the needle back slightly so you can pop it down. Again, you don't want to go into the same hole, just above, just to the side. So you're not going down exactly the same hole, but you're going down close to it. And again, you're going to pull your thread taut, like so. And then just gently pull the thread through, like so, to form your colonial knot. So the second alternative to doing French knots is to use small beads such as seed beads like these to replace the French knots. To sew these onto your cross stitch, you will probably need to find a thinner needle than the one you are using to actually do your stitching. I've got a size 28 tapestry needle threaded up. But you can also get actual beading needles. So if you're going to be doing a lot of beading work, it's probably worth investing in them. But if you're only using beads occasionally just to replace doing French knots, then just any thinner needle you happen to already have will probably do. Just pop the bead onto the needle to make sure that you can get it all the way down and onto your thread before using it. When it comes to attaching the beads onto your cross stitch, it does partly depend on where you want the beads to be as to how to do it. So if the beads are replacing French knots that are right over a hole, then it's probably easiest to stitch them on separately after you've done all your cross stitching, and just use some matching thread, or you can even get clear thread, and just stitch them on right where you want them by coming up, popping the bead on, and then just securing it back down. But what I'm going to show you is how you could attach the beads if you want them in the middle of your cross, so the middle of a square, and this can be done as you are actually doing your cross stitching, or you could do it afterwards if you've done all your cross stitching, and you can still do it the same way. You just want to make sure you have got 2 strands of whatever thread you are using to attach your bead on with, threaded up, and then you will come up through the hole like you do if you are doing a normal cross stitch. And then I've just got to get one of these beads out and try not to get them to go everywhere as I do it. So then we just pop through that one. See if I can get a bead onto the needle. There we go. It can be a little bit fiddly with beads, but like so. Just push that down, and then you're just going to complete the bottom half of your cross as you normally would, like so. And then when you're completing the top half of the cross, come up as normal. Okay, and you will go down as normal as well, but what you want to try and do as you're pulling that thread through is just part your 2 strands of thread so that you get one either side of the bead, like so, and then just pull through so that the thread goes either side of your bead as you complete the cross. And that will just secure the bead in place so that it won't move about. Okay, like so. So I hope I've given you a couple of alternatives to try if French knots are really not for you. However, if you wish to persevere with French knots, they do take practice. So don't be disheartened if you can't do them immediately or you don't think yours are perfect immediately. I'll put links to the items that I've used in this video below. And if you have any questions, please pop them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!